Her voice came low, steady, like she'd been whispering secrets for years. But it wasn't just the words that caught me, it was the way her lips curved around them, the faint glimmer in her eyes as if she knew exactly what she was doing to me. The library was nearly empty. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and the smell of old paper and polish hung in the still air. I'd come here often, but never for books. Not really. It was her. The woman at the desk, mid-40s, graceful in a way that didn't need to be announced. She wore her age like fine silk, unapologetically, deliberately. Tonight, I caught her looking at me longer than usual. Or maybe I was the one who held the stare too long. Either way, something shifted. When I stepped closer to return the stack of books, our hands brushed, just a flicker, but enough to jolt me like a live wire. Her fingers were cool at first touch, then warm, lingering a second longer than necessary. I didn't let go right away. Neither did she. "You're late again," she said softly, almost teasing, though her eyes didn't match the playfulness. They held something else. Something heavier. I swallowed, suddenly aware of how close we stood. "Guess I like the quiet hours." Her smile tilted, tired but genuine. She leaned forward, closer than she should have, and the faint scent of her perfume, jasmine and something deeper, like cedar, wrapped around me. My chest tightened. I wasn't supposed to notice those things. Not with her. Not here. But I did. Every time. I wanted to say something clever, but words clogged in my throat. So I just watched her fingers trace the spine of a book absent-mindedly, nails short and neatly kept. My eyes followed the movement, and she noticed. Her hand stilled. "Eyes up," she murmured, barely audible. Heat crawled up the back of my neck. I met her gaze again, and the silence between us pressed in, thick and unrelenting. I shifted my weight, but my feet didn't move. Neither did hers. The world outside the glass doors had blurred into night, but inside it felt smaller, closer. Every sound magnified, the creak of the chair behind her desk, the distant tick of the old wall clock, the uneven rhythm of my own breathing. She studied me for a beat longer, her expression unreadable, then leaned back against the counter, arms crossing casually, but the motion drew her blouse taut, and I looked away too quickly. Her chuckle was soft, low, almost to herself. "You're terrible at hiding things." "I'm not trying to hide," I muttered before I could stop myself. Her brows lifted. "Careful," she said, though her tone carried less warning than curiosity. "You don't know what you're saying." But I did. And the tremor in her voice told me she knew it too. I shifted closer, so close I could see the faint lines at the corners of her eyes, not flaws but maps of a life lived. She didn't move away. My pulse thundered. "Keep it quiet," she whispered again. I leaned in, my voice a hush, almost trembling with the risk. "Then stop making me want to moan." Her eyes widened, breath catching, not scandalized, but caught off guard, as if the ground had slipped beneath her for the first time in years. For a long moment, she didn't answer, didn't even breathe. And then, the heavy creak of the library's main door broke the spell. Someone was coming in. Her hand, which had rested on the counter near mine, snapped back quickly, and she straightened as though nothing had happened. I stepped back too, heart hammering, but the echo of her whisper, "Keep it quiet," still wrapped around me like smoke I couldn't breathe out. The next evening I told myself I wouldn't stay late. I told myself I'd just drop the book, nod politely, and leave. But there she was again, alone, tidying a stack of returned volumes with quiet precision. The library had that same hum, the same faint perfume of dust and polish, but she looked different somehow. Tired, maybe. Or softer. I lingered near the desk longer than I should have. "Back again?" she asked, not looking up right away. "Couldn't stay away," I said. "Too fast. Too honest." Her eyes flicked to mine, sharp and searching, before sliding away. She adjusted her glasses, a motion that didn't hide the faint curve of a smile tugging at her lips. I set the book down. My hand brushed hers again, this time not by accident. She froze, fingers beneath mine for a second longer than needed, and then withdrew, quick, like she'd been burned. I wanted to ask why she'd pulled back. Instead, I asked, "Do you ever get tired of all this? All this?" She gestured lightly around the room, though the question landed heavier. The quiet. The routine. Her hands stilled over the books. For the first time, she looked almost far away. Some people need quiet. Some people hide in it. I waited, but she didn't continue. She pressed her lips together, shutting whatever memory had surfaced. Her silence left me restless. I blurted out, "I used to come here with someone. My mom. Before things changed." My throat tightened. I hadn't meant to say that. Her eyes softened. She leaned just slightly closer, close enough that I felt her breath graze the air between us. "So you stayed." I stayed, I admitted. But maybe not for the books anymore. The air thickened again. Her hand shifted, brushing my shoulder this time, not deliberate, maybe, but she didn't take it back right away. My skin prickled under her touch. "You shouldn't say things like that," she whispered, almost scolding, but her voice cracked halfway through. "Why?" I asked, though I knew. She didn't answer. Just looked at me, really looked, until I couldn't breathe. Her eyes carried weight, years I hadn't lived yet, stories I hadn't heard. Lines of regret threaded through her expression, but also something else, the hunger of someone who hadn't been touched in a long time. I lowered my voice. "Is it wrong if I notice?" Her throat worked as she swallowed. She glanced around the empty library, then back to me. She was so close I could count the faint freckles across her cheek, see the shine at the corner of her lip where she'd bitten it. Her hand trembled once before it steadied. She let it rest, not quite on mine, not quite away, hovering, indecisive. "Some things," she said finally, her voice thin, "are harder to keep quiet than others." The words hung between us like a secret neither of us could take back. And though her hand didn't close over mine, she didn't move it away either. The rain started just as I stepped inside the library. Thin streaks blurred the glass doors, tapping against the panes like restless fingers. She looked up from the desk, hair tucked neatly back but a single strand falling loose, catching in the light. "You're soaked," she said softly. I shrugged, brushing water from my sleeves. "Didn't want to miss tonight." Her eyes lingered too long, then darted away. "You shouldn't say things like that here." But she didn't ask me to leave. I moved closer, drawn in by the way her shoulders stiffened, as though bracing against herself more than me. My hand rested on the counter, inches from hers. I could feel the heat radiating from her skin even without touching. "You're quiet tonight," I said. She hesitated, then leaned slightly forward. "Quiet is safer." My chest tightened. I wanted to ask, safer from what? From who? But before the words could form, the library door creaked open. A burst of laughter spilled in from the hallway. We jerked apart. 2 students stepped in, dripping umbrellas and chatter. She straightened, sliding a return form across the desk with perfect composure. Her voice turned crisp, professional, as though we hadn't been caught in the middle of something unsaid. I stood a step back, pretending to browse the shelf of magazines, heart hammering. The students didn't notice. They laughed, handed over their books, and left as quickly as they came. The silence that followed was heavier than before. Her shoulders dropped, relief flickering across her face. Then she looked at me, really looked, and for the first time I saw the crack in her mask, fear. Not of me, but of being seen. I closed the distance between us again, slower this time. My fingers grazed hers on the edge of the counter, deliberate but light. She didn't pull away. You worry too much about them, I whispered. Her breath caught. And you don't worry at all. Not when it's just us. Her lips parted, but no words came. The air between us thinned. She shifted closer, so close I felt her breath ghost my chin. I bent forward instinctively, the pull undeniable. My pulse drummed in my ears. We hovered there, half a breath apart, a heartbeat from ruin. Her hand lifted, trembling, as though reaching for me, then stilled midway. Her eyes flicked to the door, then back to mine. I can't, she murmured, voice breaking. Neither of us moved back. The rain hammered harder against the glass, drowning out everything else. I could smell the faint citrus on her skin, feel the warmth radiating from her chest, see the faintest quiver of her lower lip. It wasn't a kiss. Not yet. But it was closer than anything we dared. And still, neither of us pulled away. I told myself I wouldn't stay late again. That I'd leave before the silence closed in on us, before I started saying things I couldn't take back. But when she stepped out from behind the desk, moving closer than she ever had before, I knew neither of us believed our own rules anymore. You shouldn't come here so often, she whispered, arms folded as though holding herself together. Then tell me to stop. Her lips pressed tight, but no words came. She looked at me the way someone looks at a door they're afraid to open, knowing what's on the other side, but unable to turn the handle. I stepped closer. Too close. My shoulder brushed hers as I leaned toward the shelf she was pretending to organize. Her breath hitched, almost imperceptibly, and I felt the faintest tremor in the air between us. Do you ever get tired of pretending? I asked, voice low, nearly brushing her ear. Her hand stilled against the spines of the books. She didn't turn to face me, but I saw the rise of her chest, quick, uneven. This isn't pretending, she said, though her voice cracked. Yes, it is, I murmured. Every time you look at me and don't say what you want to say. Every time you, she spun suddenly, eyes burning, and I stopped. For the first time, the restraint shattered. You're a boy, she said, though her voice wavered. And I am not supposed to want this. The words landed sharp, but her eyes betrayed her, shimmering, desperate, caught between shame and need. I swallowed hard, the sting of her honesty cutting through me. Then why do you keep standing this close? Silence. Only the heavy thud of my pulse in my ears. I lifted a hand, slow, careful, and brushed a loose strand of hair from her face. My fingertips grazed her temple, lingering longer than I should have. She didn't move away. Her eyes fluttered shut for the briefest second, then opened again, wide and conflicted. You can't, she breathed. I already have, I whispered back. Her lips parted, her body leaning toward mine as if pulled against her will. I felt the faint press of her shoulder against my chest, the heat of her skin radiating even through fabric. My hand slid down, ghosting the line of her jaw, settling lightly against her neck. She didn't stop me. For a moment, the world shrank to the space between our mouths. One more breath, one more heartbeat, and it would happen. And then, the shrill buzz of her phone on the desk split the air. We froze. She jolted back a step, hand flying to her chest, as if the sound alone had reminded her where we were, who we were. The phone kept vibrating. Neither of us moved to answer it. Her eyes met mine, raw, unguarded, like she was standing at the edge of a cliff. And I knew, we were one breath away from falling. The phone finally stopped buzzing, but the silence that followed was worse. She stared at it like it had teeth. I wanted to reach for her hand, steady her, but she took a step back, arms folded, guarding herself. It's not what you think, she said quickly, too quickly. I didn't ask, I answered. My voice came out lower, tighter than I meant. She pressed her lips together, then added, it's my sister. She worries. She thinks I spend too much time here. Her gaze flicked away, but something in her tone snagged me, like the truth had slipped through a crack she couldn't close. Too much time here, I repeated slowly. With me? Her breath caught. A beat of silence, heavy and unrelenting. Finally, she whispered, she noticed. I froze. The floor felt unsteady beneath me. She saw us? Not like that. Her hand gripped the edge of the desk, knuckles pale. But she knows I stay later than I should. She asked why. Her eyes lifted to mine then, wide, trembling. And I didn't lie well enough. The confession hit me harder than I expected. What I'd thought was invisible had already begun to show. My pulse quickened, not just with fear but with something sharper, darker, an odd thrill that we weren't as hidden as we thought. You don't have to explain yourself, I said quietly, moving closer, each step deliberate. Yes, I do, she whispered back, voice cracking. Because this, she gestured between us, hand trembling, this isn't supposed to happen. I closed the last inch, close enough that her arm brushed mine. The jolt of contact sent a shiver racing down my spine. She didn't step away. Then why admit it? I asked, my breath near her ear. Why not just bury it? Her body went still. Her throat worked as she swallowed, then finally, because I can't stop thinking about it. About you. The words slipped out like a secret she'd kept too long, and once they were out, she didn't take them back. I exhaled sharply, the sound almost a laugh of disbelief. My hand hovered near hers, aching to close the space. Do you have any idea what that does to me? Her eyes flicked to my hand, then back to my face. She was shaking, barely, but she didn't retreat. Instead, she moved past me, brushing against my chest as she did. It was supposed to be escape, but her shoulder lingered against mine longer than it should have, and her scent followed, dizzying. I turned with her, catching her wrist gently before she could take another step. Her breath hitched, sharp and loud in the silence. This can't stay hidden forever, she whispered, voice trembling. Then let it be seen, I said. Her eyes searched mine, torn between fear and the pull that had been devouring us both. And in that moment, I knew, whatever choice she made next would drag us both past the point of return. The library was closing, but neither of us moved toward the door. The air hung heavy, too charged, like every unsaid word between us had thickened into something you could almost touch. She stood by the desk, one hand gripping the edge as though it anchored her. I hovered close, too close, feeling the pull of her even when she turned her face away. You should go, she said softly. Do you want me to? Her silence was louder than any answer. Her fingers tightened against the wood, her shoulders rigid. I stepped closer until my shadow brushed hers, my breath close enough to stir the loose strand of hair by her cheek. This is wrong, she whispered, but her voice faltered, thin and unconvincing. I raised a hand slowly, carefully, and tucked that strand of hair back behind her ear. My knuckles grazed her skin, hot against my fingertips. She inhaled sharply, eyes fluttering shut for the briefest moment before she forced them open again. Say stop, I murmured. And I will. Her lips parted, the word caught somewhere in her throat. But nothing came out. The silence stretched. My hand lingered, sliding lightly down to her jaw, her pulse racing beneath my thumb. She leaned into the touch almost imperceptibly, barely there, but enough. Enough to undo me. I can't keep pretending I don't, my voice cracked, too raw. Every time you look at me, it feels like you're daring me to cross a line. Her eyes glistened, regret and want warring in their depths. You're too young, she whispered, but this time it sounded less like truth and more like fear. Then stop looking at me like you want this too. That broke her. Her breath stuttered, her body tilting forward as though gravity itself had given up the fight. My forehead brushed hers, tentative, almost reverent. For a heartbeat, neither of us breathed. Her hand lifted slowly, shaking, and rested against my chest. Not pushing me away. Just holding, feeling the rapid thud beneath her palm. Her other hand found my sleeve, clutching lightly like she needed proof I was real. We were one movement away from shattering everything. I don't want to lose myself in this, she said, but her voice trembled against my mouth, so close it was barely air between us. Then find yourself here, I whispered. And finally, she closed the distance. The kiss wasn't neat or polished. It was hesitant, messy, filled with the ache of all the nights we hadn't dared. Her lips pressed to mine, soft and trembling at first, then deeper as the walls gave way. My hands cupped her face, hers curled into my shirt, pulling me closer until the air itself seemed to collapse around us. When we pulled apart, both of us breathless, she didn't retreat. She stayed there, forehead resting against mine, eyes closed. Now, there was no hiding, no pretending. The clarity sat heavy between us. Whatever came next, we both knew we'd already crossed the line. The library lights dimmed automatically, leaving us in a softer glow. For once, neither of us moved toward the exit. We stood there, breath still uneven from what we'd just done, both of us waiting for the other to speak first. Finally, she broke the silence. This can't be simple, she murmured, her hand still pressed lightly against my chest as though she'd forgotten it was there. I don't need simple, I said quietly. I just need real. Her lips pressed together, and I saw the weight in her eyes, the years, the doubt, the way she'd learned to guard herself. People will talk, she said. They'll look at me like what? I asked, leaning closer, my voice steady. Like a woman who deserves to be wanted? Her breath caught. She shook her head, but the corner of her mouth twitched, betraying a smile she didn't mean to let slip. I reached for her hand, slow enough that she could pull away if she wanted. She didn't. Our fingers laced together, tentative at first, then tighter, grounding. She looked down at the connection, her thumb brushing across my knuckle like she couldn't believe it was real. I've spent so long telling myself it's too late, she whispered. I lifted her hand to my lips and kissed it softly, lingering. Then maybe it's just in time. Her eyes glistened. For a moment, I thought she'd cry, but instead she let out a shaky laugh, pressing her forehead lightly to mine. The tension that had lived in her shoulders since the first night I walked in seemed to ease, little by little, as if letting herself lean on me for once didn't feel so impossible anymore. We didn't rush to kiss again. We didn't need to. Just standing there, holding on to each other, was louder than anything else. The hum of the lights, the steady tick of the clock, the faint smell of old books, all of it wrapped around us, ordinary and extraordinary at once. I don't know what happens tomorrow, she admitted, voice barely above a whisper. Then don't think about tomorrow, I said. Think about right now. She exhaled, long and trembling, and finally rested her head against my shoulder. My arm slipped around her naturally, holding her, steadying her. She was warm against me, her body fitting against mine in a way that made the empty library feel like the only place in the world. For the first time, she wasn't pulling back. She wasn't warning me, or herself. She just stayed. Her voice came muffled against my shirt. You make me feel like I'm allowed to want again. I kissed the top of her head, slow, deliberate. Then let yourself want. The clock chimed the hour. The rain had stopped. Somewhere beyond the glass doors, the world waited. But inside, with her hand in mine and her head against me, I knew we'd already made the choice. Not perfect. Not simple. But real. And for both of us, that was enough.